the most mysterious civilization of the ancient world. The history of mankind is a mosaic of civilizations. We know about the pharaohs of Egypt, the legions of Rome, the gold of the Incas, and the philosophers of Greece. But there are civilizations that lived and disappeared, without explanations, without witnesses, without an epilogue. They left behind more than just ruins. They left questions that we still do not have answers to. In this video, we will tell you about the most mysterious civilization of the ancient world. The one that built cities without wheels, carved inscriptions that no one has yet deciphered, and disappeared suddenly, as if swallowed by the earth itself. Who were they? How could they know astronomy more accurately than their neighbors thousands of years later? And why can we still not read their language? This is a story not only about a mystery. This is a story about a humanity that knew more than we are willing to admit. Watch until the end, because this civilization could have left us not just a past, but a warning for the future. Oh, were them the Indus people? More than 4,000 years ago, when Egypt was building the pyramids and the Sumerians were laying the first bricks for cities, an extraordinary but incredibly quiet civilization already existed on the banks of the Indus, in what is now Pakistan and northwestern India. They did not leave behind majestic statues of kings. They did not sing the praises of their battles or build temples to demonstrate their power. But they did build cities that astound even modern archaeologists. Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, Lothal, 12-meter-high defensive walls, sewage systems, water supplies, granaries. Everything was accurate to the millimeter. The houses were two-story, the neighborhoods were orderly, and the streets were straight, like lines on a blueprint. But most striking was the standardization. The bricks in each city had the same proportions, regardless of the distance between them. And here is the first question. How could a Bronze Age civilization create something so technologically advanced, without an army, without traces of a monarchy, without traces of religious despotism? Unlike the Sumerians or the Egyptians, the Indus Valley civilization left no images of wars or scenes of sacrifice. No royal burials have been found. There are no signs of dictatorship or a cult of personality. This looks like one of the first peaceful mega-civilizations in human history. Their writing is another mystery. Symbols, engravings, seals, more than 400 signs that scientists have been trying to decipher for over 100 years. But still no guarantee. Is it a language, or maybe a code? If we do not read their words, we do not hear their thoughts. But we do see one thing. They were organized. They worked with bronze, ceramics, knew about geometry, navigation, hygiene. They traded with Mesopotamia, had their own currency, branded seals with figures of bulls, unicorns, sacred animals. It was a civilization of silence, precision, and structure. But who ruled this mysterious people? Where are their kings, priests, generals? And why, when we try to find the face of the main ruler, do we find only the figure of a meditating man with a bandage on his head? In the ancient ruins of the Indus, no temples in the usual sense have been found. No pyramids, no obelisks, no throne rooms of the gods. But this does not mean that they did not believe. On the contrary, they believed deeply, simply and quietly. The most mysterious figure is the so-called Lord of the Beasts. The clay seal depicts a seated man in a yoga pose, surrounded by animals, a rhinoceros, an elephant, a tiger, and a buffalo. On his head are horns, his face is calm, symmetrical. Some believe that this is an early image of Shiva as Pashupati, the Lord of life and death. If this is true, then we are dealing with the oldest image of an Indian deity. Another mystery is the figurines of women with expressive features of fertility. Full hips, jewelry, open palms. These are not just jewelry. These are images of the mother goddess. Her cult is found in many ancient civilizations. But in the Indus, this image is combined with peaceful aesthetics. No scenes of sacrifices, only life, fertility, harmony. It is also worth mentioning sacred animals, especially the unicorn, which was often depicted on seals. This is not a fairy tale creature from European myths, but an Indian symbol of strength, purity, and independence. Combined with geometric patterns, it could be a clan totem or a symbol of divine protection. Also in the cities were found altars with a hearth, which probably served for purification rites, the predecessors of the Vedic tradition of fire sacrifices. But even these altars are simple, no marble or luxury. Faith in the Indus is the rhythm of nature, the calm of the water, the breath of the earth. Interestingly, the Indian tradition of yoga has suspiciously similar poses to the Indus figures. Perhaps it was there, in the silence between the bricks of Mohenjo-daro, that the philosophy of body and mind that would later become the heart of Indian spirituality was born. The Indus civilization did not speak loudly about its gods. It embroidered them in symbols, seals, and the shape of its streets. Their religion was not a confession, but a state, not a pressure, but a habit of living in harmony. How they lived, the life and daily life of the Indus people. Civilizations are usually remembered for their kings and battles, but the true essence of the people is in how they lived every day. And this is where the Indus civilization is most impressive. Because, even before Rome and China, they created cities in which it was convenient to live. The cities of the Indus Valley, such as Mohenjo-daro, had a clear layout, straight, even streets that intersected at right angles. The houses were built of burnt bricks, not wood or straw. Most of them had their own well, toilet, and sewage system, separate for each house. This is not fantasy. The remains of sewer pipes and drainage wells have survived to this day. For the Bronze Age, this is a technological miracle. Inside the houses there were courtyards around which living rooms were located. Some houses were two-story. People valued privacy, order, and cleanliness. Everything indicates that they did not live in fear or poverty, as is often the case in other ancient cultures. In the center of the cities were public baths, such as the famous Great Bath in Mohenjo-daro. It is more than 2 meters deep, with drainage, stairs, and waterproofing. Presumably, these structures had both a social and religious significance, a ritual purification that would later become part of Vedic and Buddhist practices. Trade is another phenomenon. They processed copper, bronze, lapis lazuli, made necklaces of glass and semi-precious stones. Their goods were found even in Mesopotamia. This means the Indus had contacts, routes, and a system of exchange. They were not isolated, they were part of the global world of that time. What did they eat? The basis of the diet was wheat, barley, peas, and sesame. They grew cotton, one of the first in the world. They cooked bread in ovens. Traces of spices remained on clay pots. They knew salt, oils, spices, and probably were the first to create a form of curry. In everyday life, the absence of great social inequality is striking. All houses are similar, all streets are equal. There are no palaces, there is no monumental hierarchy, there are only cities, like organisms, healthy, clean, well thought out. This was a civilization of cities, not wars, life, not glory, harmony, not chaos. And perhaps that is why so little has been written about them, because they did not destroy. They built. But even the most ideal system is not eternal. In the fourth final part, the most important question, why did everything disappear? What happened to this civilization? And did it really disappear, or did it simply flow into another form? The disappearance. What happened to the Indus civilization? Around 1900 BC, a great silence fell over the cities of the Indus Valley. The canals dried up, the pottery wheels stopped, and seals were no longer minted. What happened? How could such a stable, clean, peaceful civilization disappear without a trace of war? Scientists have several hypotheses, and each is mysterious in its own way. The first is climate change. The main artery of the Indus was the Saraswati River, which eventually dried up. There is geological evidence. A severe drought could change the riverbeds, destroy the agrarian base of cities. Without water, no harvest. Without harvest, famine. Without food, cities die out or remain. The second is the slow degradation of infrastructure. Archaeologists note that in the later layers of Mohenjo-daro, the bricks are of poorer quality, the construction is not as thorough, and the sewers are clogged. This may indicate economic decline or social disintegration. Not sudden, but gradual, like a disease that destroys the body from the inside. The third is external influence. There is a controversial theory about the arrival of the Indo-Aryans, nomadic tribes who brought a different language, religion, and social structure. But there is no evidence of a major invasion or war. Most likely, if the Aryans did come, it was an absorption, not an annihilation. The old gave way to the new. This leads to the fourth hypothesis. Civilization did not disappear, but was transformed. In many elements, architecture, Vedic ritual, respect for water, even early forms of yoga, all this may be a direct legacy of the Indus. They simply left no record. They left their mark on a culture that lived on under other names. The last words of this civilization were not a cry, but silence. They did not lose the battle. They left the stage without explaining why. But their cities still stand. Their symbols are still undeciphered. Their simplicity still amazes. And perhaps their mystery will outlast any empire. The Indus civilization did not build empires. It left no chronicles, heroes, or victories, but it left an example. How can one live without war, without dictators, without cruelty? How can one create cleanly, quietly, wisely? It was not a civilization of the sword. It was a civilization of the mind, and perhaps that is why it disappeared before we learned to appreciate it. Today, in an era of noise, we return to them. To understand, true greatness is silent, and true mysteries are those that still haunt us. Subscribe if you feel that the past still speaks to us. Leave a comment. Does this civilization deserve a second discovery? Perhaps the answer is already in the ground. The question is whether we are ready to hear it.